didn't let them in. They publicly went on TV and said, don't bother coming. And yet everyone else, it's throw open the doors.
Yeah, it was the most forceful they've ever been about immigration. They're like, absolutely not. We will not have this. This will not stand. And the truth is, number one, they're protecting the Cuban government. But number two, it's just simple raw politics. They know that the Cubans are more likely to vote Republican by a long shot. I mean, we're probably the most conservative bloc of voters in the country. But outside of that, you know, you look at everything happening down in Mexico and coming through the Mexican border there, it's very clear this is also about politics. This is about votes in the future. You know, we're talking about tens of millions of people in our country illegally who will then become voters and will become high propensity voters to vote Democrat, you know, at least in the short term. And so that's their whole calculation here. And the reality of the situation is here, I want to show you something. This is a shoe I brought back from the border, okay? This is a little kid's shoe. And I brought it to make very clear, this pain and suffering of these children, this was found under a tree, okay? In these places, I don't know if you ever heard of rape trees, okay? Traffickers take women and children and will rape them under these trees and leave souvenirs there, okay? Border Patrol told me all about it. It's the most horrific stuff you could ever imagine. And the truth is, the Democrats, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they don't care that that's the cost of those raw votes in the future. It's worth anything to them. So they're okay with leaving our border open and exposed as long as they get what they want in the end. And to tell you the truth, I think that's the real reason why we haven't seen Kamala go down to the border and why Joe Biden has never gone in his career, because they don't want to see the reality on the ground. They don't want to face the pain and suffering that they cause with their open border policies. And it's why we went down to the border and had this rally in March, because we wanted to make it explicitly clear that there is a price to these policies, and that at the end of the day, the morality they've preached from, pretending that it's immoral to have borders, no, it actually, we can flip that on its face. It's immoral to have open borders. This is the cost. These children, lost children who we don't know where they go, the sex trafficked and labor trafficked human beings who are exploited on a daily basis, that's the cost. And it's inhumane to allow it to continue, and so we have to shut that border down.
Robby, you brought up Kamala, and I wanna play this video of her on The View. It is just, it's not stunning that people lie. It's stunning how lies now can be invented out of thin air, and people at the highest levels of all our cultural institutions run with them, like this video about the whip.
First of all, I've been very clear about the images that you and I both saw of those law enforcement officials on horses. I was outraged by it. It was horrible and deeply troubling. There's been now an investigation that is being conducted, which I fully support, and there needs to be consequence and accountability. Human beings should not be treated that way, and as we all know, it also evoked images of some of the worst moments of our history, where that kind of behavior has been used against the indigenous people of our country, has been used against African Americans during times of slavery. And so I'm glad to know that Ali Mayorkas, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, is taking it very seriously.
Robby, did you know basic border enforcement is just like what happened to the Indians and the slaves? These people are so dumb. How many people in this society actually buy that hogwash they're selling?
I hope it's a very small group. I mean, an even better video, there was one of Mayorkas, Jake Tapper even, on CNN was like, hey, they didn't whip people. What is the deal here? Why are you guys going along with this narrative? And he said, well, these images, you know, people thought that they saw something, and that's what's really important, is they thought, no, I'm sorry, your mass psychosis is not what matters, okay? Just because you guys are all losing your minds, that's not where we build policy from, okay? And let me tell you, I went down to the border and I talked just a couple days ago to all Latino border officers, okay, border agents, and all of them were outraged by the way they've been treated with the horses and the so-called whips. For people who have never ridden horses before, they're reins. They are not used to whip people. And even the photographer who was down there said that he didn't see anybody getting whipped or anything along those lines. This is a critical tool for our border agents to be able to use in sectors where there is not an easy way to take a vehicle or anything like that. And in fact, they know that the cartels are planning to exploit this if there are not horses on the border with those agents to be able to go and patrol those areas. So again, another example of them allowing psychosis to get in the way of good policy, and in the end will end up costing lives of American citizens. This is not some small thing. More drugs will be trafficked, more humans will be trafficked in the holes that are created by not having these areas of the border patrolled.
Robby, I'm sure your congressional area in Tennessee cares, but the nation as a whole, do they actually care? I'm so floored by this. If you just take a step back, we just had 14,000 people from another nation amass on our border trying to get in. Any other country in the history of the world would send an army to stop an invasion like that. We just simply let them all in because of some bad pictures. How can we survive this? Are the American people aware of how damaging this is?
You know, not enough people care. I'm going to be really honest. I wish I could give you a different answer. I'm not going to give you a politician answer. Not enough people care. They just don't. And you know what? This isn't just Biden and Kamala to blame. I'm going to blame Governor Abbott, too, because, you know, he has the power. I knew what I would do as Texas governor, and I would be deploying, and I would even be considering deputizing citizens if necessary to ensure that we had enforcement on the border and that our border agents had the help they need. I think that, you know, the reality is immigration without assimilation, you know, leads to annihilation. And this isn't even immigration properly. This is just an invasion. And if you don't protect your country, you don't protect your borders, you don't have a country. The reality is under this administration, we are all border states. And so I am disheartened that not more people care enough to rise up and say, you know what, not in our country, because this is going to have a long-term cost for our children and grandchildren. We may not recognize the country of the future. And I'm saying this as a Latino. This is not a race-based thing. This is about cultures. This is about controlling for our economic freedom and our economic future. If we don't do this intelligently, then we are doing something very immoral, in my opinion, to our own children, grandchildren, and to the people who are drug onto this dangerous journey where horrific things happen to them. And we've got to change the way we message on this issue to reach people. And I think part of that is going to start with saying, you know what, no, the Democrats don't have the moral high ground here. Their policies allow people to be raped and trafficked at record levels. And I think that's kind of a starting point for getting maybe some of the people engaged who haven't been.
Robby, why don't more Republicans do something about it? The weakness of this and stupidity of this party absolutely blows me away. Why don't they do something about it? You brought up Greg Abbott. I'm in the state of Texas. Every Republican I know is screaming at him, do something, and yet nothing.
Well, you know, I think the truth of it is we're in a state of great transition in our party. You know, we have this sort of like past era of the Romney-esque corporate raiders. They really don't care that much about the issues that we care about, that the base cares about. And then you have a new emerging class of people, you know, like myself running for Congress, who we are at our core about the people and about the people's issues. And so for people like me, it's unthinkable to just, you know, allow this sort of thing to happen. The truth is, you know, this older school class of politician, they spend more time talking to corporate donors than they do to people who vote for them. And that's a real problem. And so the people do have a responsibility to hold these people accountable. You know, they've got to understand that if you really want change, you're going to have to get more active than you ever have been in your life, volunteering, donating to candidates who are actually going to fight for you and actually going to fight for the people's issues. It can't just be Trump. It can't just be on that top ticket. You've got to go all the way down supporting fighters.
Amen. Robby, Starbuck, everybody go support him if you can. Thank you, Robby. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you too. Starbuck2022.com.
Starbuck2022.com. All right. We got Light in the Mood next.